I have like the best set of parents and my sister who were very supportive of whatever I wanted to do. The only thing I guess a parent wants to see for their child is that they aren't struggling in whatever they do. So my dad and mom were always like, my dad more so was like, do whatever you want, just make sure you're the absolute best.
Hey Ranbir, I'm glad that we could do this.
Thanks, man.
I've been very excited about this episode of the podcast, especially because it's an industry which, while being on the peripherals of it and having some set of familiarity because of the artists that are out there, it's always fascinated me to understand how does an artist break into the music industry, especially the hip-hop scene as it is today.
Yeah.
In the last few years, the industry has grown a lot and we've seen so many rappers come up and different kinds of rappers across different languages, right?
Yeah.
So it would be great to delve into that world. But let's start from the beginning, I would like you to, just take us to what you do today, what your role entails, and which other kind of artists you work with.
No, firstly, thank you for having me. Good to be here, and I'm glad we met at a music event, and it was all good. And yeah, so what I do is basically I'm the senior coordinator and A&R for Mass Appeal India. Mass Appeal India is the offshoot of Mass Appeal USA, which is owned by the legendary, he's one of the figures on the Mount Rushmore of hip-hop, Nas, and it's him and his partner, Peter Bittenbender. So, they came to Bombay with Mass Appeal India in 2019. So, it's been that long since Mass Appeal's been operating in India. And the way I got into Mass Appeal is, again, a full circle moment because I came back to India in, I want to say towards the end of 2020, 21. And I was hired by UMG for Mass Appeal because at that point, Mass Appeal had a joint venture with UMG India. So I joined them, but then unfortunately, a week after Mass Appeal and UMG's joint venture ended. So
Got it.
I ended up leading A&R for Found Out at that point, which was an incubator hip-hop label for UMG. It was the main goal for that label was to find absolutely raw talent, guys who have 1,000 listeners, but people who we artists who we feel really strongly about, and who we think could be the next big thing. And that was kind of the brainchild of Devrat Sanyal, who's also my mentor. He's the CEO, chairman of UMG India. So, that was that. And then Def Jam came in and, leading A&R for that as well. Def Jam, again, is a property of Universal Music. So, that came in maybe a year, 8 to 9 months into me being into UMG. And I did the Def Jam bit for a bit, and then I parted ways with UMG, and then I came back to Mass Appeal India.
Got it.
It was an autonomous body at that point. So
And at what point did the JV break up?
it was a week after I joined.
Crazy.
Yeah.
dude.
So the funny thing was, I joined the next day. I had a Zoom call with Peter, who's the CEO of Mass Appeal, and we were talking about all these things. Little did I know that after a week, but I don't know for what reason I took a screenshot of our conversation at that time because I was like, damn, I'm talking to Peter, owner of Mass Appeal and stuff. So I just took a screenshot, for keepsake, and forgot about it at that time, And yeah, I mean, we at that point, Mass Appeal and UMG had done some really huge projects. That they had done Divine's 2 albums, Kohinoor and Punya Park, which were huge for the Indian hip hop industry. I think Kohinoor went 20 plus times platinum, and Divine was just the thing, And they had Gully Gang and Ikka and a lot of Raja Kumari, who's a musician. She's Indian, but she's from the US. So they were doing like some crazy stuff back then. So yeah, I mean, Master P left, and I was spearheading like Found Out, which is again an incubator label, and from there I partnered up with, and I was still very new. I was actually insanely new to hip hop in India at
Got
that
it.
point, because I was living in the US for like the longest time, and I hadn't even heard much of Divine, to be honest. Like,
So you were more familiar with the Western hip hop scene than
yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Also, like Hindi, um, like music, like in terms of lyrics, is something that I wasn't too comfortable listening to at that point. Like, I just didn't relate to it as
Got
much.
it. But that probably goes back to, when
My
you,
upbringing
yeah.
with the music, yeah. So,
and back in the day, I'm guessing, correct me if I'm
Mhm.
getting this wrong, there weren't too many Hindi rappers, and the scene was as in flourishing as it was. Right?
there wasn't. I mean, you had like your Honey Sings and stuff like that, but I wasn't into Indian hip hop at that time. Like,
Okay, got it.
I was growing up a rebellious rascal, like, listening to metal and rock and stuff.
Oh, so it was metal to hip hop. Got it. Got
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Fair. Okay,
Yeah,
go on.
it was actually a concoction of every type of Western music, and metal and rock is just something I gravitated towards the most.
Okay, got
And
it.
because my mom, she did her masters in classical vocals, Indian classical vocals. Um, my sister and I, we went to the same school, Jamnabai in Bombay. So, and she's 6 years older than me. So, and she's a singer. So, when we used to go to school, she used to go for all these Western music competitions, and I, like, as a younger brother, used to like look up to her, like, right. So, and my dad, he was more so of the sophisticated palette of music, like, like jazz and classical and R&B and that type of stuff. And my uncle,
Mm-hmm.
who's my dad's real brother, he was the metalhead. He was the guy who put that seed of metal in my head,
Fun. Okay.
Him and my sister, to be honest, because I remember the switch for metal went off in my head was when Maiden came to India
Got
in
it.
2008. I don't know what I was doing in that. Maybe it was my boards or something, my 10th boards or some shit. And I didn't know Maiden as well. But I was seeing my sister was telling me to like tattoo Maiden on her hand. I was like, why does she want me to do all this shit? And like, she made me listen to The Trooper by Iron Maiden. And I was like floored. I was like, how the hell? And I thought like, oh, bands just have like one guitar player, one bass player. And I was like, I'm listening to 3 guitars. Like,
Yeah.
It's like, how's this happening, dude? And from that time onwards, it was just like metal.
Crazy.
And then
Who
I
were your
saw,
favorite artists back in the day?
dude, Maiden for sure.
Okay.
Like Lamb of God. Five Finger Death Punch was again like my uncle told me to listen to Five Finger Death Punch, and I was I didn't listen to that for the longest time. But then I was in the US on vacation or something, and Death Punch is actually from Vegas. So
Got
we
it,
were
okay.
we were going from LA to Vegas, and at that time we had iPods. Like I took my sister's iPods and it had Death Punch on it, and I played it. And it was like the first blow that I got while listening to Maiden was the same thing when I listened to Death Punch. And I don't know, at that time, like just the lyrics that Ivan Moody was writing, who's a lyricist singer of Death Punch, they just like called out to me, dude. Like it was
Yeah.
so relatable. Like I
Yeah.
think that's why half the people really love metal, is because it's so unfiltered. Like it's your
Yeah.
inner demons trying to get out, like even as a kid, like
Yeah, most people
So-
misunderstand metal. Like,
yeah, they
It's
think it's
crazy.
all screaming and stuff, but like if you look at it from a real like technical way, it's your inner demons and your inner thoughts which are dark enough for people to like just shun and not talk about.
Yep.
And that's actually a beautiful thing to talk about, because like you don't know how many people it's gonna touch. No matter what music form, like you can say it in Sufi or like ghazals or like pop or like just whatever you choose it to be. It's just that the output that it's coming in, you relate to it the most, and we relate to it via metal.
Mhm.
You know, until today, like my favorite genre to play live is metal.
I can
hands
understand.
down.
So as a drummer,
Yeah,
that is
as a drummer,
got
yeah,
it.
hands down. So, yeah, I mean, and my uncle was a bass player. So I had like musicians all in my family, you know, like the quintessential musician family. Like, you know, my dad's a lawyer. My sister went out to be a lawyer. Um, but music was always the underlying factor.
You've
to,
grown
like,
up with music.
everything. Like, you know, my mom's Kashmiri, my dad's half Kashmiri. So I grew up listening to a lot of like Kashmiri, music and like, you know, like religious music in the mornings, like, you know, and then come evening time my dad would play like jazz and Coltrane and like, you know, just all sorts of cats, man, like all the guys. So it was like all my days were filled with listening to like different types of music.
Got
And
it.
then obviously I took to the drums because my dad always used to make me listen to like, he used to tell me to watch out for the drummers, like even Kiss's drummer and like, you know, Def Leppard. I think Def Leppard's the guy who doesn't have one arm, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
Like, yeah, he doesn't have one arm, like, you know, and he's like, dude, this drummer doesn't have an arm and he's playing like just with one arm and stuff. So I was like, dude, wow, like drummers get to sit for the whole gig while the other guys stand. Like, this is a good life, you know, like. And obviously, I was seeing like all the women were like gravitated more towards the lead guitar players and the drummers. So I was like, oh, that, yeah, I'm being a drummer, like, you know. So it went from me like taking utensils to playing on sofas to like mom and dad really being like, you know, okay, this kid like really likes the drums. And I went to my first drum lesson over here in Ville Parle.
Got it.
Yeah, this old Christian dude, like, you know.
What's his name? Favorite Paul. You don't remember the teacher, your first teacher?
Albert, one of them, like, you know. Yeah, dude, it was something with A, dude,
Okay.
like in this really dingy house and stuff. Like, I thought my dad was leaving me in some sort of an asylum, dude, like, you know, like, because it was super dingy, like, you know. But it was the time of my life, dude. I didn't want to leave like his place when I was practicing and stuff. And then I got a drum kit for my I want to say like 15th or 16th birthday or something like that, or maybe before that. The dates are messed up. And from that day onwards, I just started like playing stuff I was listening to. So I was listening to a lot of like, because dad was playing a lot of Scorpions, Deep Purple, Kiss, Pink Floyd, and, you know. But again, I was gravitating more towards like Deep Purple and Scorpions because it was a bit heavier, like, you know. And even Scorpions had come to India around that time. So again, like everything that my dad, my sister, and my uncle were going for, I couldn't go because that time you had rules, right? Like kids weren't allowed
Oh,
to
right.
gigs.
Of course.
Yeah.
So you were listening to this music, your family is going and attending these gigs,
and I can't go. Yeah,
Crazy,
yeah.
man.
So I was like, fuck. So I think that fear of missing out also kind of made me more close to metal, like, you know, because 3 of like the most pivotal people in my life and my family are like going and actively going for these things, you know. So it was like a family thing also, and it was like, you know, my dad was the listener, my sister was the performer, and my uncle was the performer. So it was like a nice mixture of like, you know. So yeah, Maiden was like the first time I got like massive FOMO, because my sister made me listen to Maiden like at least 2-3 weeks out of them coming to India. And I
Got it.
remember seeing like them on the billboard, like in Bandra, and I was like, damn, this is a big deal, dude. Like, shit. And yeah, so like Aces High, Trooper, Hallowed Be Thy Name, like all these tracks, I just used to like jam to them like on
So
the kid.
Maiden was your go-to artist back in
Oh
the
yeah,
day.
it was like my religion, dude. Like I was so obsessed with Maiden that my dad started looking up like Maiden merchandise, and I'm huge into sneakers. Like,
Got it.
And he's like, dude, they make Maiden sneakers. I was like, what? And yeah, like Maiden was like
So who were you listening from the Indian scene, or who did you grow up
metal.
listening? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so this is what happened, right? I got into metal. I was listening to a lot. I still was quite unaware of a metal scene in India,
Mhm.
to be very honest. Like, and I remember my sister had a Pentagram CD, and I was like, "Yo, what's this?" Because I could understand it's Indian vocals, like Dadlani, and she's like, "Dude, oh, it's this Indian band." And I was like, "Oh, they have like bands in India doing this stuff as well." And she's like, "Yeah, dude." And so my first metal gig that I attended was iRock.
Got it. Oh, yeah. It's
And
come back, right?
Yeah, it's come back.
Yeah.
And at that time, Demonic Resurrection, Scribe, Bionic Moth
Yeah.
were performing.
The legendary metal bands.
Yeah, and that was like the second last time at that time that iRock ever happened. It happened a year after, and then it stopped. But I happened to catch it, and my uncle knew Sahil Makija, Demon Stealer, and I was like, damn, I'm meeting like a musician for a metal show. And I met Sahil right after his set, so I was already enamored. I was like, damn, dude. And Sahil's been one of my, I've looked up to him the most in the whole metal scene. Like, I don't care what people say, but that guy's done collectively more than anybody could ever do.
Yep.
And that's usually who people shit on, because like they're just so out there, they're so vulnerable, and they don't care about I'm sure he cares about his shortcomings and stuff, but like he doesn't care enough to like not put it out.
Mhm.
And he put it out for the people like and the kids like us to see what guys like him are going through, because for us, like coming up in the metal scene, like DR was like
Yeah, I know what you mean.
gold standard,
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, I remember. I think there used to be this music exhibition that happens in Goregaon. if
Palm Expo.
Palm Expo, yes. And I think I was around, maybe I must have been 14, 15. And I just started listening to Sahil's, one of his projects, which was,
Demon Stealer.
no, it's his other comedy metal project. Workshop, yes. And I started listening to them, and I was like blown away.
Yeah. It was, dude, he was doing everything, dude. Like he was living the dream, so as to speak. Like, even though he had Reptilian Death, which was like a super death metal band, and Demonic, which was like a more symphonic death metal, like inspired by the more black metal, like Dimmu and that type of stuff. And then he had Workshop, which was like kind of his funnier side, and
Yeah.
So I was like, damn, dude. Plus, at that time, he had Demon Stealer Records, which were distributing and all the other bands.
Yeah. And he was also doing Headbangers Kitchen, like.
And he was doing Headbangers Kitchen. So I was like, dude, this guy's like doing the most.
Yeah. And that community is still active, very active. Headbangers Kitchen, yeah.
Exactly. You never know, like, which branch of your babies is gonna like blossom into
Yep.
Because I certainly wasn't expecting him to like now be this full-fledged cook, this full-time like YouTuber type of thing and stuff. My introduction into the metal scene and then getting into the metal scene was just so overwhelming because my uncle knew Sahil, and then Sahil put me in touch with so many cats. Like he put me in touch with this drummer Virender Kath, who became my drum instructor after that, and I had like the time of my life with him because I used to see Sahil like in his studio when he was living in right next to Sea Princess at that point. And I've always been like a super curious kid, so I used to see all these metal musicians come to his studio and do playthroughs or like record over there, and I think it was called Demonic Studios or Demon Stealers, something like that. Like it was like the first time I went there, I was like blown away, dude. It was probably half of this room, super cramped, a drum kit, like his station over there, but it was just one of the historic sites of Indian metal to be in. Like that's at least what I regarded it as, And Viru used to take my drum lessons in that studio because his drum kit was in that studio.
Got it.
Demonic used to jam in that studio.
Got
So
it.
all Sahil used to jam in that studio with all his acts.
Okay, so I just want to understand a couple of things here,
Yeah.
right? So, how old were you back in the day?
I was probably like in the 9th grade or something.
Got it. So
Yeah.
roughly 15? Yeah?
Yeah.
So here you are this young kid entering the metal scene in India at that point. Did you have a project of your own or were you still learning?
Yeah, so this is what happened is because I don't know, like when Viru came into my life, like my drumming just became so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was like one of the guys who was playing international circuits. He listened to a lot more music than, just other drum instructors or whatever at that point. And we were very similar in the sense that I used to love odd time stuff like polyrhythms and just the most geeked out mathematical stuff when it came to like drums. So, and he was the same, like Meshuggah at that point. Like when he made me listen to Meshuggah, I was like, dude, what in the hell like is like Meshuggah like the gods of like progressive metal and so like, and at that point there weren't many like young metal drummers who were playing at that level. Like,
Got it.
I don't want to like say that I was all that stuff, but I was able to like, I was known for my speed on my feet, like the double bass and stuff. Like, I was ripping through songs like it was no tomorrow, and I was actually practicing a lot of Demonic Resurrection songs and like Lamb of God and Death Punch. Like, all these drummers had such precise footwork. So Viru used to like make me meet other drummers. Like there was like Hamza Kazi who played for Workshop.
Yeah.
Like, and from there, Sahil, I joined this other metal super group, which had like members from Gutslit and Demonic Resurrection and Albatross and stuff. And it was called like this Indian metal super group, and I was like the youngest drummer. Yeah.
It was called the Indian Metal Supergroup.
No, it was called the Minerva Conduct. But
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
So I was, I was playing with them, and at that time I was in the 10th grade. So I was so restricted because of studies and stuff that I, if there was any drummer who was filling in for me, it could only be Viru. So like to play at that caliber, like there wasn't any other drummer who. Hamza was the other guy, but apart from him, like there wasn't anybody else. So. And then I left the band, like, I just wasn't getting time. I was like, whatever.
Okay, pause.
Yeah.
You're a part of this metal scene. You're working with some of the veterans of the industry, right?
Yeah.
I want to understand from your perspective, as a young kid trying to break into the metal scene, what were your thoughts around having a career in this industry?
Dude, yeah, so that's a conversation my mom and I used to have, like, very often. Because I started playing drums in school, like, for the school band, right? And, mind you, in school, we had a choice of taking science or economics. And I took economics. And I happened to be really good at business at that time as well. So, and I started this small operation of mine where I used to buy bootleg merchandise but sell it as original merchandise. So I used to mark it up. Like I bought like these t-shirts from like Lokhandwala market for like 500, 600. I used to sell it for like 1200, 1800.
Crazy, dude.
Yeah. So at that point I knew like, okay, like, I have the business acumen for sure. And also a lot of it, I have to credit Sahil because of the way he used to like sell his merchandise. Just the way this guy was an all-rounder was something that inspired me to like a whole other level. So,
I can imagine, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like, I didn't think about, like, I did take like aptitude tests and this and that and all that stuff, because when a parent sees his child go into the arts, they're like, okay, like, are you really going to be able to make a career? But fortunately, I have like the best set of parents and my sister who were very supportive of whatever I wanted to do. The only thing I guess a parent wants to see for their child is that they aren't struggling in whatever they do. So my dad and mom were always like, my dad more so was like, do whatever you want, just make sure you're the absolute best at what you do. So
That's such a good advice.
yeah, I got that mentality from dad, because even dad, when he was growing up, he was playing cricket like a lot, and he had the option to like go play like for the teams and stuff like that. And his dad was a lawyer, so he asked his dad like, can I pursue cricket, or do you want me to go into law? And my grandfather was like, you already have a mentor figure like in law, and this empire that you can build. So that's what my dad chose to do, and he's like one of the most known adoption lawyers in India. So, that was just the mindset from day one. Just for anything my dad put me into, like, I became an athlete like really young in life because my dad used to play tennis, so he put me into tennis. So, the whole narrative was like, whatever you do, just kick ass.
Got it.
Like, and I was very fortunate in the sense that my dad came with me for every tournament, every gig. Like, he hauled my drum kit with me everywhere I had to go, like, So, my parents never let me think for a day that they weren't supporting my career choices or what my career choices would
And
become.
to be
later.
clear, at that point, were you chasing having a very successful metal project, or was it something else?
It wasn't more so like a metal project. It was just, I wanted to play drums.
Okay, got it.
I didn't care about like, if it was metal, more than well, like, it was, because like I said, my most favorite genre to play live is metal. I just feel is the most exhilarating genre to play live. It doesn't, nothing gives you more adrenaline like a metal gig, So, and slowly, okay, I get done with Jamnabai, and then it's 11th and 12th time, right? And that time, because that was that whole period of me getting super engrossed in the metal scene, like playing with Sahil and the other band that I mentioned. Late night rehearsals, how it is, like, and, I was always surrounded with guys like very much older than me. So I wanted to hang with them. I wanted to be around, like, stuff they were doing. Not that I did any of it, but like, it was just like for a young guy, it's very like, young people are very impressionable around like older cats, like, so I went to NM. I was studying business economics over there. And, I wouldn't say fell in love with economics at the college, but with my tutor who was teaching me economics. And she used to be my business teacher at Jamnabai.
Okay.
So the way she taught me business, macro, micro, econ, all that stuff, like, I just really loved it, dude.
Got it.
I could really understand business at that point. And so that happened. And at that point, when I was in high school, I was listening to more music. Like, I wasn't only just listening to, like, I was listening to a lot of like death metal and heavy metal at that time, but then I was graduating more towards like Animals as Leaders, Periphery, and Monuments, Architects, Pliny, all these guys. So even my palette in metal was getting more sophisticated and more technical and that type of stuff. So got to me graduating from high school, going to college, because I was playing so much sports and music, I could barely go to college, dude. Like, I'm not waking up at 7 o'clock to go to NM. And, when I went back to NM for like college, which was BCom, I was doing so much like sessions and like rehearsals at night and then shows, whatever. There was no way I was waking up in the morning to go to college. So subsequently, like, I came on the infamous blacklist or whatever. I had like 16% attendance, something like that.
Oh,
like,
shit,
it was
dude.
slim as shit. And NM being NM, they were like, dude, we can't have this kid in school. Like, so they called my mother. Like, it was like this whole horseshoe kind of configuration where they had like the board, and they were like, dude, we can't get your kid to like stay in NM any longer. He's like gone way below the threshold of attendance.
And that's despite, loving the subjects that you were studying, right?
Yeah, but like in college, I was like, whatever. Because college, I was like, it was BCom, so it was whatever. Like, I didn't really give a shit. So at that time, I thought like, okay, I'll do BCom, but then I'll focus more on music because BCom isn't like,
Got it.
But when they called me and they were like throwing me out of college, and my mom is all sad, and I was like, dude, this is like the best day of my life. I was like, dude, stop like trying to like debate them into keeping me and stuff. I want to leave. Like, so I left, and then from that time I became pretty serious as to what I want to do. Because like, do I want to do like a BBA or like whatever, or like, do I want to get into business? Do I want to get into music? And then the Berklee Indian Ensemble came to India for this 2-day exhibition seminar sort of a thing. And obviously, for every musician who knows what Berklee is, it's like the Harvard of music schools, right? So when they came in, I was like, shit, I need to go. And I went, and so it had Berklee faculty. Everybody came in. So it was like a 2-day workshop of them teaching us how like a crash course into what Berklee would feel like. And I was like, dude, I want to go to Berklee, dude, like shit. And what was crazy was the faculty actually, there were like 200 kids in that seminar. But the only parents that the faculty called were my parents at the end of the seminar to actually talk to them, to be like, dude, your kid is like insanely talented. Like the skills we saw behind the kit, and like, it was nuts. So like, obviously my parents then were like, all right, yeah.
That must have been so encouraging, not just for you.
Dude,
but
it
for
was
your parents.
mad, because I was like, and the Indian ambassador at Berklee, whose name is Clint, he was also Indian, so it was an amazing perspective that my parents got from an Indian from Bombay, like, who started off from Bombay playing music to then go into Berklee and being this figure, So Clint was like a big like role model in me being considered for Berklee, and then actually going to Berklee, and like, he and my family became very close. We used to meet quite often, and he became like kind of like my career advisor.
Okay.
Like, and we used to meet often, and I tried out for 2 schools and 2 schools only. Actually, I didn't even really try out for MI, which is in LA, Musicians Institute. They actually got in touch with me because my name was coming up in the Indian music scene and stuff. And they were giving me like a partial to like 70% scholarship.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so, but I was like, no, I don't want to go there. And from the time that Berklee came to India for that seminar, to me, auditioning for Berklee was an 8-month gap. And I was obviously out of college at that time, so I had all the time in the world. And then I joined the Furtado School of Music because I was like, okay, I need to get really serious with like, learning the theory of music now, like, notations and all that stuff. So I went to Furtado School of Music, like, learned what theory actually is. Like, it was, I even interned there as a teacher, so that, I was just like, the whole process of learning theory.
So you interned as a teacher.
Yeah, at Furtado School of Music. Like towards the end of my, so I'd say like the first 6 months I was learning over there, and then the next 2 months I was interning there as a teacher.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Sorry, that just sounds a little funny.
Yeah. It was nuts because like there were cats I was learning with. After a point, I was teaching them. So it was like, because I had the chops. It was only that I was bad at theory, and that's another thing. Like, not now, but like maybe at my time when I was like 12, 13, like theory wasn't taken so seriously.
Got it. So you spent. I'm just trying to understand. Okay, there's Furtado School of Music. Then MI offered you 70% scholarship.
Yeah.
Then how does Berklee happen?
Yeah. So when Berklee came, right? So MI offered the thing after Berklee came to India. That's when I was actively looking for music schools and stuff. So, and I think some rep at MI must have seen my pictures being affiliated with Berklee, like, you know, from the seminar and stuff. And they obviously reached out and they're like, oh, we want him, whatever. So, but just seeing Berklee and the history and the legacy of what Berklee was, and some of my favorite drummers graduated from Berklee, like Matt Garskar, Animals' Leaders drummer, and, you know, Mike Portnoy, who was Dream Theater's drummer, and all these guys, like, you know, I was like, dude, Berklee is like the place. And that's it. I just spent 8 months, because there's an audition to get into that school. It's not like other American universities where you have to give like SATs or like essays and stuff like that. They come here, they take your audition for half an hour, and there's a half an hour interview, and then they choose if you're fit or not. And it was like, I just knew Berklee was a thing, dude. I had blinders on. Like, I didn't want to go anywhere else.
And which course did you take up there?
I undergrad.
Undergrad.
Yeah,
but what is it? What is the degree?
Bachelor's in music.
Music. Okay. And what does it teach you, like, across the board?
Yeah. So what happened was that once I gave the audition, I started looking more into the programs at Berklee, which should have actually been the other way around, like, you know. But because I was super new to like credit system and semesters, and because in ICSE, which I was in Jamnabai, like, we don't have like semesters and credits and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
So I was super new to it, and so I give the audition, and my mom, my dad, obviously my sister, we all sit down and we decide like, okay, if you really have to go to Berklee, it's a shitload of money. And you know and it's not even more of like return on investment, but it's just like, what are you going to do after? Like, you know. So when I saw music business, I was like, okay, cool. Like, music business is something I can do as my major over there, like, you know. So I was still torn between like performance being my major and music business being my major, but like, because I obviously wanted to play, like, you know, every musician wants to be on the stage and like, you know, tour and stuff like that. But I auditioned, and there were like about, I don't know, man, 800 kids from all of India who auditioned. And there were only like, I think Berklee went to like a couple of cities, like the top metros like Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, and there were only 26 odd cats from Bombay who actually got into the audition, and like maybe 12 who made it to the school.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. So I was like one of 3 or 4 drummers who actually got into that semester, like, you know.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. So I was like, and the thing that like 8 months before the audition, I had no experience in theory and like sight reading and like, you know, stuff like that, to like even melodic dictation. For drummers, it's a nightmare, because like for like melodic players, like guitar players and like vocalists and stuff, your notations like move on the staff line. Staff line is the sheet on which you write music. For us, like our notes stay static on like each staff line. It doesn't move.
Oh,
But
really? Okay.
for melodic, like your pitches move, right? Like lower C, middle C,
Yeah,
upper C,
yeah.
like stuff like that. So for us, it's like it's a nightmare, like But anyways, the audition went super well, and I played a metal piece for that audition, and they had this amp which was playing the backing track, and the auditioner was so impressed that I was playing so soft, like metal drums, but soft, and the backing track was actually, he was like, dude, like this is nuts, like and I was hitting like 280 BPM on my feet and like this and that and all that stuff. 280 BPM being like beats per minute, like the tempo. So yeah, we got in, and it was like I got the mail and broke down like instantly because I was like, damn, like it was just shit's about to get real. Like little by
Yeah.
little, like shit was getting real,
Yeah.
And at that day, like my parents, my sister, me, like we were all just like, okay, now we need to devise a plan as to how we have to go about like, you know, surviving in this school, and then the most important thing is like surviving after Berklee. So multiple meetings with Clint, getting uh, clarity into what I can do as a drummer over there, and as a student, and so cut to me going to Boston. And actually that was the first so my flight to Boston was the first time I was seeing Whiplash. And I was scared to my I was like, dude, I was like I was like, shit, what did I just sign up for, dude? Like and there are some teachers at Berklee who are like old school jazz cats who are like, they won't throw stuff at you, but they're tough. Like, So I was like, shit, bro, I'm screwed. But yeah, we got to Berklee. Like, so the first week is kind of like they sort you into like it's crazy how similar it is to like a Harry Potter Hogwarts.
Oh, really?
It's nuts. Like you get to school over there,
Uh huh.
and your first week they're sorting you into like levels.
Okay.
They're sorting you into like what classes you should take, how good you are as a musician coming in.
Oh, crazy, dude.
Yeah. So you're supposed to give like how many tests, English tests, rhythmic tests, and like your proficiency on your instrument. So and then yeah, that happens, and they give you a rating. So from 1 to 8. So the first week, so they gave me a rating 5,
Okay.
which was like pretty good. Like most of the people were like rating 3s or like 2s or whatever. And you could give rating auditions at any point in your life at Berklee to become an 8. Like,
Got it.
8 is like gold standard, whatever, obviously. But that's one thing I particularly like hated, because I hated like a number being associated to your skill. Like I was very well an 8, but it's just because like I wasn't as good of a reader, or like just whatever. I wasn't an 8, but I was kicking ass of like rating 8 drummers like in that college, like so
So it was not just got to do with how good of a musician you were. it
yeah,
was
yeah,
other
like
things.
it was an all round thing, dude. Like sightseeing and like improv, comp, all that stuff was taken into account to give you your ratings and stuff. So
Crazy. So you've now entered Berklee.
Yeah.
You've been rated 5, which is good as per the if 8 is a gold standard, then you're pretty up there anyway,
Yeah.
right? Now from there, let's understand the arc where you moved on from metal to
Yeah.
hip hop.
I was still pretty much into metal like at that time. I never left metal, like even now. Like it's a very big part of my life. But at that time, because Berklee isn't known to be a school for like, it's a contemporary school of music, right? So like jazz, R&B, like blues, all that type of stuff. So but still, like like my first semester we have ensemble classes, which is like an ensemble is like a band where you get put together with similar rating musicians, and you like it's for a whole semester. You study music of like a certain musician or like stuff like that. So I obviously took the rock and pop ensemble because I was like, okay, rock is the end, whatever. But it wasn't really my jam. Like I wasn't really, because even the rating 5 guys were like kind of below my level, like the guitar players and the bass players and stuff. I just wasn't feeling that push, so as to speak. So and in the first year, you kind of find your own people. So I became friends with at that time who became like my best friend. He was from Japan. He was big into metal, but he was like into the thrash metal thing, like thrash and glam. Like we used to listen to like Wasp and Steel Panther and stuff. I remember Steel Panther was coming to Boston, and if you know who Steel Panther is, like their shows are nuts. Like the women going wild and throwing like bras on stage and stuff. And even their bus, dude. Like when it came, their bus had like the most adulterated like rap on it. So Max, who was like my Japanese friend, he went and started banging the bus door. He's like, dude, I want to meet like Steel Panther and shit. And one by one, everybody from Steel Panther came out, and we were just like starstruck, dude. We were like,
Crazy.
shit. Yeah. And Steel Panther at that time, like in 2016, was like still doing stuff like that. It was nuts. So, but he was also like super into hip hop, Max.
Got it.
And a lot of the guys who I had heard before, but like I wasn't keeping up with them. Like after the metal phase happened in my life, like there was no 50 Cent happening and all that type of stuff, right? So I kind of got back into hip hop. Every Sunday we used to go to this street called Newberry Street, which was in Boston, and we just used to like have our stuff ready, and we just used to sit on somebody's porch. Like we just used to go like sit on somebody's porch and just play music, like just sit and just listen to hip hop like all day long. So he was making me listen to a lot of like Wu-Tang, a lot of Suicide Boys, a lot of like 21 Savage at that point, but like a lot of these older guys like Rakim and so. And the more I was listening to it, the more I was getting more like, because I went to Berklee knowing that I have to become the most versatile musician out there. Like I was ready to shed my metalhead skin and like become like this versatile drummer, which I did later on. So I was doing that. Then come to year 2, there's something called a directed study ensemble, which means you yourself can choose an artist who you want to study, and you can bring musicians in to be a part of that ensemble. So I could choose a rating 8, 6, 7 to be a part of my ensemble. So I started the Periphery ensemble.
Okay.
Yeah, because I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to play, and that was my way of like living my metal dream at Berklee, and knowing the cats over there who could play metal at like a really high level. So so in the Periphery ensemble, there was like this one Indian guy who grew up in the Gulf. There was this American dude. There was a guy from France. So it was a mixed bag. And Berklee is a place where you have cats from like every corner of the planet. So I have friends in like, you put a hand on the map, like I have a friend in that. Yeah. So and it was nuts knowing that. Okay, everybody loved metal coming into the school, but everybody, like, as versatile as we were getting in other genres as well, we were bringing in that flavor into metal as well, which was making it just so much more like fun. So we had the Periphery Directed Study Ensemble showcase at the end of the semester. We played like a set of like 8 songs and stuff. Some of the toughest songs, like I have the playthroughs on my my Instagram and my YouTube and stuff. And it was mad, dude, because it was me playing live, and we had to play note for note, like that's what directed study means. Like you study the musician or band's music to the T. If you want to add some of your own flavors, that's fine. But like it's supposed to sound like, so when you call people to watch you, it's like they're watching Periphery live, which is, I want to say that was probably the case, like because we sounded so close to like sounded like Periphery. Obviously, like wouldn't say that we sounded exactly like them, but like if you listen to the playthroughs live, like we sounded so much like them, and it was like insane. So from that time onwards, I was like, I'm not going to do these regular ensemble classes. I'm going to form my own directed study ensembles and just get cats who are like better than me or like on a higher rating. So that's what I did. And as I went through school, I had a band, like, it was a prog rock band and stuff. We played a couple of shows in Boston and in New York. And I subsequently like left that band because the guy I was playing with, like, it was just, my time was getting wasted a lot because it's just like, when certain people in the band like outshine other people, it hits their ego and like, it just bleeds in. You know how it is, like, and I was like, I'm not doing this. Like, I can't help it if people like gravitate more towards me and so it was like whatever, it was time to like, so that's when I was like, okay, let's not do prog and the more technical stuff, let's do a bit more like other kind of music, like so my other best friend from school, Sarah Nissenbaum, she started like this R&B pop act of hers, and we were playing her original music, and I realized how much I loved playing like in the pocket, like just, and a lot of drummers find it super difficult playing in the pocket. Like if I just tell you to play a 4x4 groove for like a minute, 2 minutes, like you might say it's easy and stuff, but I'd love for you to be mic'd and play that groove for like a minute, and we'll see, like,
Yeah, I know.
So that's a whole other kind of discipline that I had to inculcate in myself, like, and, then that happened, and then this was now coming into my third year into school, where you enter into your majors. So the first 2 years in Berklee, they teach you core music, which means ear training, which means like, so all core classes had levels 1 to 4, like ear training 1 to 4, harmony 1 to 4, counterpoint 1 to 4, arranging 1 to 4 as well. But if you're not like a composition major, you only have to do the first level. That's it. So conducting. So they made you like a proper musician. Like if I have an orchestra in front of me, I can conduct them right now, no problem. So like your training is like essentially training your ears to pitches and like singing pitches and like rhythms and stuff like that, and harmony is learning the notations and like the melodic side of music and stuff. So the first 2 years go into like making you into this complete musician, right? And after that, like you choose your major, like if you want to do film scoring or like music business or performance or like stuff like that.
So is that more application?
Yeah, that's when you get into your majors now. Like like more subjects. Like if in the first 2 years you had 80% core music, now it's 80% your major studies, and then 20% is like your liberal arts or like core music as well, because like you can choose when to do, like if I want to do your training 4 in my last semester, I can do that, like just spacing it out, whatever. So music business started, and shit, man, it was like it was the best thing ever. Like,
pause right there. Until the music business came along as a part of your major, you were still on the track of becoming a drummer and a musician.
No, because at that point, I was playing so many sessions and I was playing so much that and like with me speaking to a lot of my seniors, especially from India and like from other countries, I could see them struggle, man. Like,
Got
after
it.
graduating and like, getting gigs, and all of them invariably just started teaching to like make ends meet and stuff. And I didn't want to do that. Like,
So you were aware
yeah,
the
I was,
hardships
yeah,
Indian
yeah.
musicians have to
I was
face.
aware of that before going to school, man.
Okay.
Like, I was aware of it from my uncle's times. Like, him being a bass player and like, then giving it up for like a more steady career and like stuff like that. So I always knew the reality of being in that 1% of like being able to do music like full time and stuff.
And yet you kept going, right?
Yeah. I was like, I'll take it as it comes. Like, because I was content because I was playing a lot of sessions. Like, I was known to be a sessions musician. Like, if somebody wanted me to cut drums on their sessions, even like 2 hours before the session, they'd call me.
Got it.
I'd learn the music like 2 hours before, go cut the drums. That's it, done. I must have played easy over like 150, 200 sessions in my career at like Berklee. Yeah, for
crazy.
different musicians.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
and different genres. Like, I was playing on a Middle Eastern album, I was playing on a singer-songwriter, just every genre under the sun. So I was playing very frequently, so I was happy to. Like,
And were these gigs paying you or?
so some sessions paid me, yeah. Some studio sessions paid me because, like, when you build a kind of a reputation of being this go-to drummer,
Mm-hmm.
your time becomes money, like,
Yep.
and yeah, so I was actually one of the very few drummers in school, and I wasn't charging much. I was like charging like $20 an hour, $30 an hour.
How does that fare with market rates?
Yeah, I mean, dude, like, if you're being a professional drummer in the music scene, like, and then doing a session, like, it's like $800 a session,
Oh, wow.
$500 a session.
Crazy.
Like, yeah. But that's when you're in the circuit. So if I was in the circuit doing that, I could have easily charged
Got
that
it.
much
So
money.
you knew what was lying ahead of you had you
Yeah,
continued being a session drummer.
Because I was still charging students, right? And they're
Yep.
anyways broke. Like, we're anyways broke. So if you, like, and I was fine, dude, getting $20-$30 like an hour. And I was usually in the studio for like, I don't know if it played to my advantage or not, but I was so quick that I was finishing sessions like in an hour.
Oh,
Now looking back, I should have taken my own sweet time and like done 2 hours, 3 hours, so it could have become $60 and then $90 and stuff
Crazy,
like that.
man.
Yeah.
That's
So,
cool,
but
yeah.
like, we were students, bro. We knew like we didn't have money and stuff, so it was whatever. Like yeah, and so I didn't really miss being a drummer when I was doing my major as well, because I was doing everything. I was playing shows, I was doing sessions, I was jamming. Yeah, maybe I wasn't practicing as much, but because I was playing so much, it was just becoming practice. Like I wasn't away from the drum kit, like stuff like that. But from all these years of studying business, now I've found myself studying a particular type of business. Like
Yep.
now I'm getting into the meat of what I want to do, and even in music business, the major, similar to like core music, you have levels in your subjects. Like it becomes, you go more deeper into your major as your semesters go by. So the first year was more like 101 classes, like music law 101, music IPs 101, music publishing 101, marketing 101. So that gives you like a broad aspect of which stream of music business do you want to go to? Do you want to go into management? Do you want to go to marketing? Do you want to go into entrepreneurship? So I chose management. So in my third year comes who is by far the best teacher I've had in my whole life. Like, his name is Ralph Jacquardin. He's a professor at Berklee, and he teaches obviously music business, and he's a manager like outside of school. Like he manages James Taylor's brother. Livingston Taylor.
Okay.
James Taylor was like this legendary musician. If you don't know who James Taylor is, you should go and look it up. But
Okay.
so he taught us this class called music intermediaries, which is basically the third man between the musician, the third man, and all the opportunities which lie on this side. So basically, your manager, your A&R, your agent, that's an intermediary, right? And that's what I got a bit more clarity as to what I could do. Like, I didn't want to be a manager because I was a musician, man. I didn't want to manage musicians and kind of look at other people still living my dream of playing on stages and stuff like that. For the longest time, I didn't want to do that. And Ralph was always like, dude, don't knock it till you've done it, right? And he and I just became so fond of each other that I used to go to his office hours, which are like, office hours are hours which professors have in the week where you can go and visit them to like, for your doubts or like if you just want like, guidance, counseling or just whatever. So I used to meet him and like, he used to tell me like, dude, you're so, like your business acumen is just so off the roof. Why don't you go back to India and like, because it's such a developing market. And I was like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Bro? like, and at that time I was...
Which year was this?
2018.
2018.
Or 2019.
Got it.
2019. I was like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I just came from India over here to leave all of that stuff. Because at that time, it was all like, oh, the money is only in Bollywood and like, films and stuff like that. And I didn't want to do that. Like, I was like, dude, I don't think you know what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not going back to India and doing that. He's like, dude, trust me. If you, being you, go into a developing market, you'd be like a shark. Like, I was like, dude, you're talking shit, bro. I'll just come. I'll see you in class tomorrow. Like, whatever. Got to, he used to have a lot of guys from the industry come in and give us lectures. Like, and that's when I understood what A&Rs actually did, what managers actually did, what they have to go through and like, things of that sort. So Ralph, like, held my hand, so as to speak, through my whole career then, like, after that semester got over. And, yeah, like, every music business major has one credit that they have to utilize to work. Like, either intern or, like, they have to, like, use a credit. Otherwise, you can't graduate, right? Because you have an outstanding credit. A lot of my peers wanted to do an internship during college because they were like, oh, dude, I interned with Sony over the summer. Oh, I interned with Apple during the summer. Like, But I was never of the opinion of doing that. Because in the summers, I wanted to, like, focus on playing more. And I had a job on campus which paid double during the holiday season. So I was making bank, like, and I was spending it on all sorts of stuff that you can imagine on, like, so I was like, okay, I don't want to intern and stuff. And then unfortunately, and then, when school was getting kind of tough, like, obviously, Berklee is an insanely tough school, like, when you're in your fourth level of harmony and classical harmony, when you have to write pieces that Tchaikovsky and Bach wrote in that style, you will feel the pressure, like. And at that point, there was a dude who was like 3 or 4 years elder than me who met me in my arranging class. His name is Dylan, who became like an elder brother. Like, I was, the first 2 years in college, dude, I was like wasting my time. I was living the life, partying, women, booze, all that type of stuff. Like any kid would do when they go to college, abroad. And I was wasting a lot of time. But then when Dylan came into my life, he put so much structure into like being like, because he was older than me and he'd done all of that stuff. And he was from the West Coast. And he taught me so much about the West Coast hip hop, and like we used to do homework together. And when I say do homework together, we actually did homework together. Like, pulled all-nighters and stuff. So I was very inspired by a guy at his age, being 28 and still being in school at that time, and doing what he was doing, and we became so close that we I was doing sessions for him as well, and all that type of stuff. And a lot of my female friends around me could see a change in me, like being this most serious musician and this business dude who wants to get a grip on life. So
Sorry, I have to ask you. You very specifically said female friends. Like,
yeah,
is there a reason for that?
yeah, because Sarah Nissenbaum, actually, who was one of my friends when school started, she was seeing me roaming around with the wrong sorts and just partying too much and
Okay.
doing whatever I was doing, and she was like, dude, I think you need to figure your shit out.
Got it.
Maybe she didn't want to be friends with a guy who just doesn't give a fuck about his career,
Got it.
and at that time I just had so many friends, and I was known in school that I was like, doesn't matter, if I lose one friend, and she's like, dude, I don't think I'm going to spend too much time, I don't know, I don't remember what it was exactly, but she said something to me which I was like, I shunned it at that time, and I was like, later I was like, and she was like a brilliant student, bro, she inspired me so much. And so later when she saw me, and then we kind of rekindled, and then we became super close, and she was like, dude, this is exactly what I wanted to see you become, and maybe me being away from your life, and maybe somewhere playing at the back of your mind told you that, and see, guys always want to impress a girl, whether it's in a romantic way or in some way, you always want that female attention. So maybe because I wasn't getting it in any capacity from her, I was like, shit, I need to pull my socks up. So I don't know what it was, but it was just her telling me that, dude, I don't think you're serious enough in life. You figure your own shit out and whatever. So it was that, and also a lot of other female friends also in my circle, when they saw me getting more serious, playing more gigs and just doing better in class and stuff, their attitude towards me just changed more. They took me more seriously,
Got
So
it.
and that was they used to come to me for advice on different stuff and the business aspects and things of that sort, and it was very rewarding to
Sure.
uh,
So I'm just trying to map your journey so far, right? Okay, so I see a trend which is which speaks to your growth, right? One is the fact that you've always have aspired to have better musicians, more talented musicians around you.
Yeah.
You could learn from them, right? Whether it was Viru in Bombay to kind of 8th grade.
All the guys, yeah.
You were trying to partner with for your ensembles, right? So that's one part of it. The second part of it is the fact that you stayed at it despite being aware of the reality of the situation, right? So you were aware how tough it is to be a musician, especially a metal drummer, let alone anything else, right? So, and then you're out there working with some of the top people, not just musicians, but also people in the on the business side of things, right? It's almost like a coming of age story where you're also, are trying to make the most of the situation there. There are people who are encouraging you to do things. So now you're at a point where you've realized, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but you pretty much made a decision that you want to pursue the business side of things by now. Is that what it is?
Yeah, when I took music business, I knew I'm getting into the business side of things after school.
Got you. So let's get to that point, right? So you've made that transition, right? You've gone from being this musician who's partying and enjoying his time to now, okay, let's roll up our sleeves and get there.
As semesters went by and as I was nearing the closure of my my degree, I was getting more serious as to which avenue in the music business I want to go into. Do I want to go into publishing? Do I want to go not marketing, but like artist management or like A&R and stuff like that. I was still a bit confused into which track I wanted to go to.
Got it. So when does 50 Cent come in all of this?
Yeah, so this is what happened, right? My last semester, Nipsey Hussle passes away,
Okay.
right? Who's like one of the most prolific hip hop artists in LA. He did so much for the community, and again, he is the guy who had the business acumen that a lot of hip hop artists like strive to have, like, you know. And I learned so much from him. Like, you know, I had like his posters around my wall, and it was such an amazing time in my life because he was kind of the guy who was doing music also, but he was doing business side by side, much like I was doing, and he was finding success in both spheres, like, you know. So unfortunately, the Nipsey Hussle ensemble didn't happen because the pandemic happened and we all had to, like, you know. And like I said, I had that credit remaining, and when I graduated from school, I started applying for like internships and stuff like that. And Ralph was like, "Dude, I'll put you in touch with Ice." I said, "Dude, seriously?" Like, he's like, "Yeah, I'll put you in touch with Ice." And Ice is Jeremiah Ice. You know, see, he's 50 Cent's long time tour manager. Like, you know, he worked for Chris Lighty, who owned Violator Records. Chris Lighty was 50 Cent's manager at that time. So you know, Ice had worked with like the biggest guys on the, like, Mobb Deep. I think guys from Wu-Tang as well, but like 50, G Unit, Chief Keef, all of these guys. I was like,
Crazy. Dude.
damn, dude,
Yeah.
like. So I remember Ralph put me in touch with Ice, and at that time I was living in Maine. I was living with my brother-in-law's brother, again a big hip hop head, and he was a younger guy, so we all got along really well, right? And shout out to him, Bharat and Vanessa, like they kept me in their house for like 6 to 7 months because the pandemic, right? Like
Yeah.
my mother was freaking out. She was like, "Dude, where the hell are you gonna go?" So like for the first 8 months, I stayed with like my legal guardians over there, who were my like far away relatives, and then from that time onwards, like the pandemic eased a little bit, so I moved from like outskirts of Boston to Maine, and I was like, okay, it's been a long time, and I wasn't doing anything because everybody was shut. Like, so it was 8 months of post graduation of me not being able to do anything because everything was shut. Like nothing was working.
Okay, let's. I want to ask you this question. Okay, it's there, been there. Okay, you. Let's talk about the artists in the West, the hip hop artists, the ones you hung out with over there, versus the artists here. Now, I grew up watching hip hop on VH1, where, as you said, right, the image of hip hop is women, expensive cars, drugs, gold, whatnot.
Yeah,
right?
I mean that's a recurring image since the start of hip hop.
Exactly. And that speaks to Divine and all these artists who are talking about aspirational themes and through their work, right? Now, how does the quality of life differ, like in US and the West, and here, in terms of, you know, how the artists live here and there, you know?
See, over here, like, it all just comes boiling down to what, like, how established you are as a musician, like how much money you're making, like, you know, that type of stuff. Even in America, like, not every rapper is making like bank. You know, not everyone's making money purely off of streams. They're making money off of shows and merch, and, you know, like, there is no money in music per se. Like, if you, and when I say that, I mean like streams. Obviously, there's money in music, but like, if you're just gonna live off streams, then you're not gonna, like, you know. So in the US, what I see is like there's so many more options for like playing shows. Over there, people are used to paying money for the stuff that they want to go watch or like
Correct.
own. You know, merchandise, you have to pay. Gigs, there's no like I mean, there are guest list systems over there, but it's not like over here like, "Oh, bro, can you put me on the guest list and stuff?" Like, okay, for some shows where you actually, sometimes you can't afford to pay an 1800 gate or like 2000 gate, whatever, and you try your luck in asking like, dude, can I? But if there's an artist who you know that you like, or who's your friend, most importantly, you pay to go for their show. Dude.
Yeah, that's so true.
You don't ask them to put you on the guest list. Like I remember, very honestly, Tech Panda and Kenzani, who were like these really good, producers from India, and they came to Bombay for the first time, and I was in Bombay, and I told Tech like, "Yo, dude, I'd love to come for the gig," and he's like, "Dude, don't worry, I'll put you on the guest list." I was like, no, bro, like, I want to get two of my friends as well, like, we'll pay. He's like, dude, don't worry, like, it's fine. So, the next time he was having a gig, I didn't tell him that I'm coming, like, because I didn't want him to oblige, like, I wanted to pay and go for that gig. And there have been instances where my friends have played shows and I physically can't be there, but I've just bought a ticket, like, So, I think that mindset of pay the goddamn price, dude. Like, it's even these are guys who have to like make a living. If not make a living, just make some money off of it to go back home, sleep at night, knowing that, okay, my song made $10,000 today. My artistry made like this much money today. They don't go back thinking that, oh, I did this for exposure. It feels amazing.
Yeah. No, that's crazy, man. Yeah. And I think I remember even with metal gigs, what used to happen would be that more often than not, the frontliners would be metal musicians supporting the other acts.
Yeah.
And I vividly recall that we would encourage buying tickets.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I honestly don't think I've been on the guest list for a single metal gig in my life.
Yeah.
Knowing the guys I've known, like, we always just, I don't know if it was like, okay, we know that metal is like a niche community or whatever. It just like, dude, we loved it, man. We wanted the guys to like make money and we wanted to buy merch. It was just something we looked forward to. And I feel like just psychologically, if you pay for something, it feels better to experience that thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, I mean, like, just different tiers of artists. Like, obviously, if you're starting out, you're not going to make as much money. Like, and in the US, the touring system, merchandising, it all just comes down to really the ability of paying.
Got it. I have to ask a question. Feel free to not answer this. I have seen a lot of metal musicians crib about, everybody's just doing hip hop, considering you have moved from metal as like a full-time thing to now being in hip hop full-time, do you get that diss from the metal community?
Sahil gives me a lot of shit for it, dude. Yeah. He's like, dude, you went from playing blast beats to like playing jazz and stuff. And that's like our ongoing, yeah. But, dude, see, I mean, when rock was rock, like back in the ages, like, the age of rock, like, I don't think the guys in hip hop were like being like, oh, why is rock so big? And like, all music has its own time. Like, you have to understand the guys in metal or us, like, we're getting older, like, and we haven't stopped listening to metal. If tomorrow there's a metal gig, we're going for it, like, but you have to understand the hip hop is youth culture. It moves with current trends, like it moves with fashion. It's everywhere. Like, hip hop is there in sports, it's there in fashion, it's there in just anything.
Yeah.
Like anything. So it's more widely accessible for kids and the youth to be exposed to. And again, like, everybody wants to look good, feel good. Like, with metal, it's like black on black on black. Like, black t-shirts, black this, black that, whatever. The hip-hop cats want to be more like blinged out and like, just wear better clothes and like present themselves better, like the streetwear type of stuff, So it's kind of like that. Like, it's more so what like me as a kid, I grew up with rock, so it stuck with me. I'm sure, uh, I'm sure if we teach our kids to grow up with metal and rock and any other genre, they'll grow up having that no matter what they do. Like, even Sahil, like Sahil says that he grew up looking at his grandmom making food and his mom and stuff. So even though he grew up listening to metal as well, now he's pursuing the culinary aspect. Like even 50 Cent, like even though he grew up doing music, like he's still now doing television and movies, and he brings along that music aspect into those things, like, right? So that ability of being able to morph, like even me, dude, like in metal, like there's so many things I've learned being a metal musician, or like in the metal music, like themes, or like, just the way of expression that I use to tell my artists, like, dude, you can express yourself in this way, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it's music at the end of the day, and it all helps each other, like intertwine in different ways which people wouldn't have thought. Like,
Fair. That's completely fair.
Yeah.
Now, just coming back to your day to day as an A&R, what kind of, okay, we spoke about originality, right? You're looking for originality when it comes to newer artists.
Yeah.
Who's the most exciting artist for you right now?
Dude, so recently, with originality is another thing is that I don't give a shit about languages.
Okay.
That's another big thing which has been like a topic of discussion in India, like, oh, English doesn't work. Fortunately, it hasn't as much, but I was like, I don't care, dude. If it sounds good to my ears and if it sounds good to like a bunch of other people, I'm at least gonna try.
Yeah.
So South India is something which has been really close to my heart, like since I was a kid, because my dad's best friend was South Indian. Grew up around a bunch of South Indians. My sister's husband is South Indian. So South India has been like a recurring topic in my life, right? So this artist called Dabsy had come to India last year, and he performed at Rap 91. Spotify.
Come to India last year?
Oh, sorry, come to Bombay.
Got it.
Yeah, from Kochi he came to Bombay, my bad. And he played at Rap 91, which is Spotify's concert. Dude, this guy shook. And Bombay is a tough crowd to please. I'm sure you know, like, you know what I'm saying? So, dude, this guy just massacred the crowd, bro. People don't know what he's saying. Like, he's rapping in Malayali and stuff. And at that point, I was like, who the fuck is this guy, dude? He's blowing people from, like, Delhi and Bombay and stuff, known people out of the gate, like, And gig gets done, I meet him, and, he, like, I saw that spark in his eyes, like I would see in metal musicians back in the scene. Like they really want to do something for the scene, and like they want to make new music. Like they and people from the South are just so unapologetic about their art. They're so art driven. Like they don't jump onto bandwagons and be like, oh, we want to make music like other people. They're so original, dude. So cut to me joining Mass Appeal, and like I told Sandeep, who's the VP of Mass Appeal, and he's again been like one of the most pivotal figures in my life. I was like, dude, Sandeep, I want to go to South India and check these guys out. And I told Peter also. And again, coming back to, having superiors who let you take that risk. Yeah. These guys were like with me from day one. They were like, Ranbir, if you want to do this, do it. Peter was like, I just don't want an opportunity to be missed. It's okay if it doesn't work out, but just go and do it. And I was like, damn, dude, like this is the kind of support system I've always wanted. So I went to Kochi. Dabsy invites me for a gig in Kochi. He's like, dude, it's happening in my hometown. You should definitely come. I go, and it's madness, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it's like Maiden playing in Mexico. Like, the fan following. It's mad, dude. Like, it's so...
What is the wildest thing that you remember?
So, this is what happened. Because Dabsy is a very known figure in South India. Like, super known figure. So, when I got to South India and, he was putting me on his stories and stuff, literally the whole industry knew that I was in South India. So, when I went... everybody else started coming to South India to like search for artists, and because everybody was telling me like, dude, Ranbir, I got a call from this label, I got a call from that label. I I was like, damn, dude. And then just the people over there, like, they were like, dude, I want to click a picture with you. I want this, I want that. I was like, dude, why me? Like, So it's just like, his fandom was like bleeding into me being there, and people just losing it, dude. They were like, oh, you're from Mass Appeal India, like this and that. Just the hospitality was nuts. And South India just felt like a whole other country to me. Like, because it was so welcoming, it was so raw, it reminded me of what made me fall in love with metal. Like, that's what. So when I went to Dabsy's house, he was living with another artist called Baby Jean.
Okay.
And he's an artist who only has 2 songs out, and he's already crossed like 2 million on both the song streams.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, damn, dude. So I originally went only for 2 days, but I ended up staying for 16 days.
Crazy.
And when they were playing this gig that he invited me for, there was another artist called Vedan.
Okay.
This guy is by far he's like the Rage Against the Machine, but in rap, in hip hop, like talking about like anti-politics and communism and the shit that goes down in Kerala and all that stuff, right? So, and I forgot that I'd found him 2 years ago when I was working at UMG.
Okay.
I forgot that I'd like come across Vedan, and when I met him, I was like, damn, dude, this is really like a full circle moment. Like, the powers vested to be really wanted me to be here at this point to sign a partner with these guys. So I stayed with them for 16 days. They didn't look at me as somebody from Mass Appeal, and that's the big thing that I try to like establish with my artists. Like, I'm more of like a brother or friend, like none of my guys look at me like, oh, this guy is from Office, like, he's from the label, like this guy is like our guy, And dude, even though there was a language barrier, I just saw the way they worked. I saw the way the fans worked and what they liked and stuff. So I came back, told Peter and I told Sandeep, I was like, dude, I'm going to sign these 3 artists. I don't care. Like, And Peter was like, yeah. So all the guys at Mass Appeal were like, dude, yeah. So in a week, I signed all 3 of them. So Dabsy, Vedan, Baby Jean, and all sonically poles apart from each other, right? Because the scene in South India is so small that you'd expect that, everybody would want to sound like everybody. But no, everyone's just so different lyrically, sonically, it's everything. Like even appearance-wise, that I was like, and that was like, I think one of the, so when I partnered with them, it became like this big talk of discussion, like in the community, like a lot of rap pages were covering it and that sort of stuff. So I felt really proud, like, I wanted to tell all the people who had been telling me for all these years, like, oh, it's like Malayali, it's not going to work. What do you mean, dude? Like, have you seen the South Indian industry? Like, what are you talking about? Like, just because you don't understand, you don't listen to it, that doesn't mean there's like a whole other sect of people that aren't going to listen to it. So,
it's actually the same thing with movies,
Yeah, like, people over here listen to Mexican music. What the fuck do you understand of, like, Spanish? Like, so, don't ever come to me saying that you're not going to understand, like, language barrier. Like, so, yeah, that was, like, one thing. And all these guys, like, these guys have more numbers than the guys on this side of the world. Like, like, the South guys have way more numbers, a crazier fan following than guys over here. It's just that it's not been showcased to the Northern Hemisphere of the country,
Fair.
So, that's something I took upon myself to, like, show it to the people.
So that's so good, right? Like you identified a bunch of these undiscovered artists, not even the language that you completely understand, and now they're like doing so well, right? And that's the trend that is.
I mean, dude, Dabsy, Dolkar Salman, like, endorsed him as one of his top 5 artists. He's done songs for films. Even both the other boys, like, dude, they're doing in their space, they're royalty. So, as long as that's the thing, and, as long as Mass Appeal can play a part in and being a pivotal role of regional music, even though it caters to the regional audience, it's more than...
Got it. So, that brings me to the last couple of questions. What is an advice that you would like to give to any aspiring hip-hop artist?
Like I give, just don't conform to the rules of labels. if any A&R comes and tells you like I want a song like this, firstly he's not an A&R. He's just a slave to the company and a slave to his KRIs that he has to fulfill. He's not an A&R. He's not. He's not somebody who is gonna look out for you and your music. You know, just know why you started music. If you just started music just because you wanted the life that comes with it, you're in the wrong business. Get out of it as soon as possible, because you're gonna fall so hard that you're gonna be so depressed. Be like, dude, what did I do wrong? Like, why is it not working for me? It's not working for you because it wasn't meant for you. It was meant for somebody else that you're trying to ape. It's just not gonna cut it for you, right? So originality, stick to your story, stick to your lane. There's no traffic in your lane. Like, you know, just stick to your lane. And don't be afraid of taking risks. Don't be afraid of saying certain shit just because society has become soft. Like, you know, people forget things really quickly. And I'm not saying like diss somebody or like be disrespectful, but stand for what you know want to stand for. And like, it's hip hop, dude. It has to be raw. Like, you know, just there's a whole world out of women and booze and drugs and glam and glitz. Because there's only so much you can talk about, like macking a chick here and like wearing this t-shirt over there, and you know, what happens to talking about your life which no one's heard about, like, you know. So it's just that, and make sure that, you know, you're working on your craft every day. Like, you get better at it, like, no matter what. Even if you're self-taught, like, you know, and not just hip-hop, but any genre of music, please study the origins of where that genre
that's
comes
a good
from.
advice.
Study the legends. You know, even if you don't like their music, like, you know, but just like with math, you need to understand the basic of math to be able to, like, you know, do bigger sums or whatever. Like, and it's just anything in life. You need to study the greats. You need to know the history of what hip hop is, where it came from, so that you understand that it's not just what the other person does. It's truly what you want to do and what you want to stand for, and like, you know. And yeah, just don't listen to what labels want from you in terms of music. Like, you know,
there's like a whole variety of advices that you've plugged in over there, and I'm so glad, right? And just to finish that point, right? You said don't listen to labels. Like, what do you mean exactly?
What I mean is, obviously listen to labels if you're working with them in terms of them developing you, but don't listen if you're reaching out to a label, and don't ever ask them, oh, what music would you like me to make?
Got it. Yeah.
I want you to make music that you make. Like, you know, it's not like I'm going to give you a brief tomorrow, like, hey, just make another Gangster's Paradise. Like, don't ever ask a label that. And if somebody from a label comes and pitches you, like, bro, I want a song that sounds like this, not the label for you, or not the guy for you to work with. You know, like, yeah. That's what I mean by, you know, don't listen to labels. Like, and even if you're working with a label, still be an outlaw. Like, you know, still devise your own marketing strategy. Still, like, because who knows, if a label drops you tomorrow, you're out by yourself. Like, you're not going to be able to, like, you know, no musician is ever anybody else's. By what I mean is, no label owns any musician. So that's what I mean. Like, don't succumb to labels so much that you're like, oh, because he asked me to do this, I have to do this. No, just do what you want to do. And people like us, like, you know, legit A&Rs will see it. Like, we'll be like, okay, yeah, this guy, because half the A&Rs, they're like, they go into studios, they'll click pictures, they'll put it up with like music, like, oh, today I was in the studio with this guy. What do you do in the studio? I just told him that it sounds good and, you know, this doesn't sound good. And I was like, dude, even my aunt can say this, like, you know. So, and a lot of the Indian A&Rs are like that. You know, like, not to like, you know, whatever. But again, I don't really give a shit about being the bad guy. But if it comes to the cost of people really knowing that, being educated on what they actually have to do, I wouldn't mind being the black sheep, you know. Like, I want to be the one to advocate for people to do what's right and to do what's not like the norm, and you know what other people are doing and stuff like that. You know, just be original, honestly, like, because otherwise the scene won't grow. You won't grow. Forget the scene. You won't grow. Like, you know, first you need to grow to make the scene grow. So
Yeah. No, that's so true, man. That's so true. I think we've covered quite a lot on this episode, and I definitely sense that we might have to bring you on again. You know, there's so much to unearth in this space. There's so much that, you know, it's so inspiring to see you grow as an individual as well, from your journey from being a musician here to where you are right now. Thank you, Ranbir, for doing this.
Thank you so much.
We'll definitely have you on board again, and we'll have probably like a much bigger scene to uncover at that
for
point.
sure.
Yeah.
Next year is gonna be. I just want to say November 3rd, Kashmir. I don't know if you know who Kashmir is, but like, yeah, Kashmir is dropping like India's biggest hip hop album in Indian history. You know, Mass Appeal, Represent, Dharma, all of these guys, we've worked endlessly on this project, you know. A&R'd a couple of joints on that album, and Kashmir is like, it just speaks, like, he being such a huge musician has been so receptive to like kids like me. Like, I'm a kid in front of him, like, you know, he's been so receptive, being the big cat that he is, to so many people under him, that it just goes to show you how willing, so like how much you should be learning as a musician all your life. It doesn't stop. Like, a 34-year-old guy won't know what a 24-year-old guy is thinking about, and he would want advice from a 24-year-old guy being like, what's your kind of audience wanting, you know, how can I relate to your audience? So stuff like that. So like, you know, Karam, that's what the album is called, biggest album of the year, and you know, just watch out for that one. And obviously Mass Appeal is going to be bringing some insanely huge announcements.
Got it.
Yeah.
So one last thing on Kashmir, because you brought this up.
Yeah.
You should have talked about this earlier. We could have delved deeper into it. But
Second episode.
Yeah. We'll go into the BTS of that.
Yeah.
But what's the one thing that you're excited about in terms of the music in the upcoming album?
Again, this album is narrating a full proper story.
Okay.
Like, this album is a whole story of a boy who comes from the mud. It's a gangster story. Like, you know, he comes from the mud. He wants to be something. He wants to be like this big guy in the gangster circuit. It's inspired a lot from Scarface.
Okay.
And the brief that was given to each and every artist was according to the storyline. So they couldn't rap about what they wanted to rap about. All of them are rapping about different chapters in the song. And actually being able to have 25, 24 odd musicians on the album, stringing the album together, working remotely, like it's been the most beautiful thing. And you know, like, Kashmir is also Kashmiri, like, you know, I'm Kashmiri, and it's been rewarding in some senses to like work with a fellow Kashmiri, you know, like him coming back and us just like, and he's like an elder brother now. He and I speak every day. Like, he's inspired me so much, and he's given me the reins to work with on this album beyond my expectations. Like, just apart from A&Ring it, everything from marketing to merch to mixes to sitting with him to cutting every single interlude on his album to having me on his album. I've done like an interlude or two. So yeah, like it's been nuts. It's just like, and it's been so original. Like, it's been so rewarding to see. Obviously it hasn't been like a easy journey, having so many artists on this album and, you know, like dealing with so many things, but we made it happen. And, you know, just shout out to everybody from Mass Appeal and Dharma and Red Light, Luke, Sandeep, Peter, Kashmir, like, you know, Manda, all these guys, Ayushman Sinha from Represent. We've all like, and also a lot of other people, we've all just worked so tirelessly. Like, it's, you know, it's a collaborative effort, I'd say. Like,
Got it.
you know. And Kashmir makes it known that he gives props to every single guy, even the light guy in his shoot, like, you know, he'll shout him out, like, you know, stuff like that. So, and that's what you love, dude. Like, you know, every all the behind the scene guys get their due credit. So,
Got it.
yeah.
Sweet, man. Wish you all the very best
Thank you,
for the
man.
launch. And like we discussed, you're coming on board again. Awesome, dude. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.